Hello, hello. Welcome, YouTube. Hope you're all doing well and on this lovely Friday that we have going on. Yes. Hope that you all are ready for some wonderful insight on design fundamentals and motion graphics today. I am going to be going through a little presentation here that will hopefully give you some insight on what to think about in terms of creating good design with your motion graphics that you're producing. Just a real quick background of who I am and why I'm here. My name is Justine Sanborn. I'm an instructor with Noble Desktop. I just realized that you can't see my face, so maybe if I move it up here, you can see it now. I mean, honestly, we could just go right into the big screen for this introduction, but again, hi, hello, I am Justine Sanborn, and again, I'm an instructor with Noble Desktop, and my focus is in graphic design, advertising, PR. I also have a strong focus in social media and also have a background in motion graphics. So creating motion graphics for various different commercials and things like that. Case studies as well, which is a bit of a different story, sort of, than what we're going to kind of go through here today. So I have a variety of different concepts that I'm going to be showing you all today, alongside some examples, both commercial-based examples as well as some just quick visual examples for each thing that we're talking about here today. So again, we'll go ahead and just zoom right back to the presentation and get ourselves going here. The first thing that I wanted to show you, and I'm going to show you quite a few different commercial examples. So hopefully they don't get mad at us. I assume that because they're, advertising commercials, that they shouldn't get mad at us about these things. Who knows? But I digress. This is actually one of my current favorite ad campaigns out there. This is a recent creation from Acura. Well, Toyota, right? Toyota Acura, I believe. Ooh, I should know this, but anyway, this is one of their more recent campaigns. So they came out with this just a couple of months ago, and it's a series of different animes. And I think it's really a creative way to incorporate animation and also just storytelling in creating commercial content, which I absolutely adore. And again, that's my main background. Of course, you can use motion graphics for a wide variety of things. A lot of folks use it for music videos. I'm not showing any music videos because, again, we don't want to get in trouble here. So these are some of the more better examples. So I'm just going to go ahead and play this example again. This is coming from Acura, a new series of animes that they have incorporated in their ad campaign. So let's just take a look here and yeah, enjoy.
What a show off. Who runs all the whole track?
Money. That's who.
Can't buy a skill. He's not even that fast.
Don't do anything stupid. Yucky! Hello.
Game on.
See ya.
This is not over.
All right, so let me know what you think. Feel free to type in the chat. Maybe that's the first time. There's two more volumes to that. That's volume one. And it is quite a fun little treat there, if you will, of animation happening, a nice anime-based commercial there from Acura. And again, that's one of three, I believe. Three? I'm pretty sure it's three. But anyway, I digress. So there's a lot of things going on in that commercial, and not really much for type-based content. It was primarily a storyboard animation, and the fundamentals of motion graphics can and are also aligned very much so with animation overall. And these are going to be the things that we're going to be focused on in today's seminar, okay? A lot of these things you actually saw in that particular commercial, but probably weren't aware of the fact that you saw it. So hopefully this information can give you some insight of how things ultimately visually work in the environment of both motion graphics and animation. So number one, we're going to be talking about timing, spacing, and rhythm. After that, we are going to be stepping in today with eases, weight, and anticipation. Number three, we're going to be talking about arcs, transitions, and exaggerations. And of course, number four, design appeal. What is going to make your design appeal to others and make people want to watch it? I don't know about you, but I wanted to watch more of that animation. That really drew in my attention. In fact, if I remember correctly, let me just take a look here. I'll tell you exactly how many people really wanted to watch that commercial. It was, drum roll. Oh, it was posted 4 months ago and has a happy 6.9 million views on the YouTube right now. That is huge when it comes to a number of impressions. So each of these examples I am going to be showing you throughout the day in terms of commercials are going to have different things that are ultimately advantageous and make them successful. So that one was a really unique approach and really fun. So playing on the tune of folks liking anime, but what type of things are they using in terms of these basic fundamentals, right? A lot of things that you might have noticed during that video were a lot of things in regards to timing, spacing, and rhythm. There was also a lot of weight and anticipation happening in there. So we're going to go ahead and dive into these bits of information so you can get a little better understanding of them. So first things first, timing, spacing, rhythm. What are these things? Let's talk about them. Number one, we have timing, which is working alongside a script and ensuring that your content is coming in at appropriate times. So there was quite a few moments where you could hear the car audio in the Acura example, and you could hear the car audio and it would go boom. And when it had that like whoosh of audio is when they would cut the clip and go to another clip. So that timing was really spot on. Of course, when it comes to working with, let's say, music videos, you want to absolutely ensure that you're on the beat, which actually has a lot to do with rhythm. In fact, honestly, when it comes to timing, spacing and rhythm are more like a part of timing more than anything else. So really, ultimately, that timing, again, especially when it comes to timing with the audio, is a huge component in your successful motion graphic design. Even if you're off by just a tiny couple of frames, it's going to throw off the whole vibe and the understanding of what's going on with it. So that's extremely important. Speaking of spacing, so spacing, again, connected to timing, it depends on where you are or where you place your spaces, but ultimately it can demonstrate speed. It could demonstrate the opposite. It could demonstrate somebody slowing down. In fact, it could demonstrate someone slowing down to a complete stop. So I just want to show you a quick visual of that really quick. So we have some spacing examples here when it comes to the timing. So you'll see that with the first example, it was spaced consistently throughout. In the second one, where it's pushed, the spacing is a lot more condensed at the ends of that transition. So making it a lot more exaggerated, a lot more, there's a lot more, I guess exaggeration is really the main focus there. You were seeing, again, this a lot in the Acura commercial example that I was showing you. So every time that car sped up and slowed down, there was a very clear spacing. It wasn't a consistent spacing happening. It was that, again, that spacing where you had a more condensed amount on the beginning and the end, and then it was spaced out a bit wider in the middle, giving you that more extreme time frame of animation. So another thing that you want to think of that we were also talking about in the example with Acura with the car swooshes is ultimately rhythm. This is aligning your graphics with the rhythm of the music or voiceovers. If you have an intense beat, movements that correspond with the downbeats of the song can make the content feel more epic, among so many other things. An example that I really wanted to show you on this, to be honest, but I knew for sure that YouTube wouldn't be happy with it, is the Gorillaz music video. So if you just go to YouTube, check out the Gorillaz YouTube videos. They have multiple animations there, and they're extremely fantastic examples of rhythmic use of motion graphics and animation, which is really quite wonderful. So the example that I'm actually going to show you with this is more so corresponding to a voiceover and understanding how to time your voiceovers really well with, again, motion graphics or animated content. This is something that perhaps is a bit more challenging to assess on what's going to work and what doesn't. Whereas a lot of times with music videos, it's a little easier to synchronize beats or what have you with the upticks of your waveforms and your audio, etc. So you really want to be a bit mindful of this when it comes to the audio, because each word is said differently. Some words, of course, are a bit longer and shorter than others. Again, it's not this set in stone beat that you could align to. And this example that I'm going to show you for that is really fantastic. Oops. Yeah, I'm not going to show it quite yet, sorry, because it's going to play right away, apparently. But actually, it shouldn't. There we go. I don't know if anybody in chat are in the New York City area, but this was actually a really big ad campaign throughout the New York City subways a couple of years ago. It's from the brand Casper, which have the different air mattresses, or sorry, not air mattresses, foam mattresses, whatever. They have mattresses. They're a new mattress company, and they've seen a lot of success within a very short period of time, and a lot of it has, or a lot of people like to kind of thank their ad campaigns, their clever ad campaigns for it. So this is a video version, an animated version of the illustrative components that they incorporated in their printed ad campaigns on the subway. And what I want you to really kind of focus on in this particular video is when the announcer states certain things, when transitions are ultimately happening, because there are very clear transitions happening, and again, perfectly aligned to what the voiceover is saying. So I'm going to go ahead and play this for you all to watch.
At Casper, we make one perfect mattress for knitters, physically fitters, and even big wigs. Fighters, deep-sea divers, whatever your gig, single, hitched, or it's complicated, a Casper keeps you rejuvenated. Because there's one way to sleep that's second to none. Casper, the perfect mattress for everyone.
I'm going to have to remember to unmute myself every time I mute myself. One of those challenges that I struggle with, I'm not going to lie. So if you saw my mouth moving, it's because I was talking and I forgot to unmute myself. I'm so sorry. Anyway, yeah, so that commercial, again, really great example of a voiceover just ultimately flowing with the animation. There isn't an inherited beat, but it is very poetic and very flowy. So there is still a distinct rhythm within that video that you saw. And you could see that each animation started to kind of flow into the next example that the voiceover was talking about as they just started to talk about it. So something that you want to avoid, for example, is having a voiceover say something that the viewer isn't seeing yet. So you, again, want to make sure that that content is directly aligned, has a rhythmic reason for it to come up. The rejuvenated is one of my favorite parts in that commercial, where it all came up at the same time of which he said it. So he really over exaggerated saying rejuvenated. And as he said that, the little banner kind of popped up and had that arc as well, which is another thing that we're going to be talking about. It had that arc in it that reflected the arc in his voice, which I thought was extremely clever, and applying those visual ideas with that was really fantastic. Now, the next three things we have eases, weight, and anticipation. A lot of these, and now granted, the timing does somewhat also reflect real life things. I guess really all of these concepts reflect real life things, but these especially reflect real life things. Okay. Now, eases are graphs that are used to animate the rates of change between different properties. So I'm going to show you an example of that right now. Here we go. So you can see all of these different ways of moving. This is a basic ease in out here that I'm cursoring over from the left and right here, very basic. And then you have this wave ease where it's coming in and then moving quite quickly. And then you have an easy ease, which it just slowly comes in. And then you have an easy in, all this different stuff. You have a linear as well, where you can see that difference between your ease and just a straight up linear line. So you have all these different examples of that there. So I'm just going to move my view here. Okay. Anywho, let's circle back. Is it going to let me? No, because I keep on clicking on different stuff. Anyway, yeah, so eases are graphs used to animate the rate change of different properties. So you definitely want to be mindful of that. And again, think about how that's going to have a visual impact on the content that you're working on. How is the visual impact going to be applied? It's going to be very similar to, again, your spacing as well. Is it coming in quickly, and in the middle it's a bit slower, etc. You ultimately want your eases to reflect how perhaps that item would move in real life. Speaking of real life, weight. So this is a concept of understanding how an object would move dependent on its weight. So if you had a literal weight, which, nope, spoiler alert, but my example is going to be that, versus a feather, those two items are inherently going to be moving differently from one another. Okay, the movement of a feather is much slower, more fluid, whereas the movement of a weight is going to be a lot more dramatic, a lot faster, and there's going to be also a lot of reverb as well. So depending on the weight of the object that you are moving in this motion graphic space, that should, again, reflect on how you're animating it. These same concepts can also be applied to any type-based motion graphics that you're doing as well. So if you want your text to look heavy, maybe it's coming in as like a weighted bit of text that could kind of smash down and again have that bit of reverb, which we'll be talking about the actual term for that here shortly. And then lastly, you have the anticipation, which in order to showcase the force needed for a large action, which is again going to be what I'm about to show you, consider having the object move in the opposite direction. So think about somebody who's throwing a ball. Somebody that's throwing the ball, they're going to wind up their arm to get enough force to throw it as fast as they can. They're not going to just, well, I suppose some folks will just try to throw it. But of course, if you do that, you're not going to have as much momentum, they're not going to have as much force. So anytime that there is a substantial amount of force, which you're about to see in the example shown, there is going to be that anticipation, or rather that kind of like throwback. And the anticipation could be prior to the action happening as well as the aftermath of whatever is happening. So it could be, again, the aftermath of that really heavy item hitting the floor, which is ultimately what you're going to see here. Okay, so let's skip to that example. We got the man with the weight trying to lift it up, and there he goes real fast, and then watch how it throws it on the ground. Up, 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 up. Okay, that's that anticipation as well at the very beginning, where he's quite literally trying to lift up that weight. So you can identify the weight of it as well as that anticipation being used to identify that force that is happening with that object, right? When you think about it and you break down the pieces of what's happening in this animation, there's quite a few just very basic things happening. And it's just, again, ultimately reflecting what you are going to be seeing in real life if somebody was actually doing powerlifting. So here's another example. So getting wind up, ready to go, getting wind up, ready to go in, hoit, and then it flips over. Okay, so it has to have that motion to get itself going and flip over as it's working on that. So it's another example of anticipation. Okay. Our next list of options, or not options, but things that we want to talk about next are your arcs, your transitions, and exaggerations. Okay. So arcs I mentioned earlier with the Casper commercial, where it had the I can't remember the word that they used, but it had the word. I don't think it was relaxation. We're just going to pretend it was though. Um, and they had this like quite literal arc way happening with that. There's a lot of different arcs. The main reason why I'm talking about arcs is that ultimately, in most cases, you're not going to have linear movements. Linear movements are ultimately not, generally speaking, a natural movement that you're going to see. So instead of a linear movement, a straight line, straight vertical line, straight horizontal, you want more of an arc. And again, something that you want to consider when you're working with this arc is, again, that concept that we talked about earlier, which is the spacing. So for example, if you are throwing something up in the air, when you're throwing it up in the air, it's going to go up, generally speaking, depending on the force, it's going to go up a bit slower. And then it's going to even have like a moment where it just kind of like hangs in the air for a hot second. And then on its way down, it's going to come down much faster than how it went up in the first place. And so that is applied with that concept of arcs. So here is an example of that arc being played with here. So you'll see that moment where it almost kind of like slows down and then it speeds up right at the end, right? So it has a bit slower of a momentum. You see that force, right? You see that anticipation where it had to squish down first to get itself going up. Okay, so there's a couple of things that are happening here. Again, it has a squish down of the anticipation, it has the arc, and it also has that spacing happening where that time or that animation is getting quite literally slowed down right in the middle where it's up in the air. Okay. Next, we have transitions. So similar to easing, transitions are ultimately controlling the change between something and another thing. Usually it's one scene to another. And there's a ton of different ways that you can incorporate transitions. And I really want you to ultimately think outside of the box when it comes to these, okay? Image transitions can oftentimes be like an eye blink or something a bit more dramatic, like walking through a door or grabbing a cup and drinking from it. So there's a lot of different things and concepts that you can use, which we'll have quite a few examples of those as we go on here. But what I'm ultimately saying when it comes to motion graphics, really explore your options with your transitions and don't rely on, let's say, those embedded transitions that you're going to see in your applications. There's nothing wrong with the occasional cross dissolve in your content. I get it. Your simple cuts are pretty much all that you're going to need. Hi, heart. Love to see it. Hello. Awesome. Your basic cuts are what you're going to be transitioning through or with most of the time. And again, those basic cuts of clips are going to be reflective of someone blinking their eye. And what I mean by that is we don't consciously think about blinking our eyes. It is something that we've been doing since we were born, and we are very used to doing it. Okay. And with that being said, it's a seamless transition for us. So when you cut a clip, visually speaking, the viewer visualizes it, as ultimately an eye blink. So they don't even really notice it. It's very fluid. It makes sense to folks. So that's actually something that I see quite often, is that folks will overuse something like a cross dissolve or any other quirky preset transition, and it distracts from the overall concept, because a person um, is yeah, assuming that we're walking through a door practically every single time that we go to a different scene. So be mindful of that. But again, also think outside of the box. So I mentioned the door. I mentioned, looking at a cup of water. We're going to see a lot of those really fantastic examples here in a little bit. I don't think I have a GIF for this. No, but I do have this visual example, which has a ton of really unique different transitions, what are words, happening in it. So again, another commercial. I believe this is for like a hand lotion. Yeah. So anyway, let's go ahead and play it.
Oh, yeah. Come on, everyone. Won't you bang that drum and put your hands together for the hand walk song? First you wet it, then you soak it. Now you palm it, and do the backs. You're right on track. Next you lace it, interlock it, twist the thumb, your fingertips. That's the trick. I see you wrist it. Time to rinse it. Last you dry it, and you're done. You bish bash bosh.
All right. So the curtains and the towel are my personal faves from this commercial. I really love the towel transition. The curtain is, a curtain call. We see it all the time, but it was cute the way that it was designed. Very stylish there. So it's not as like sort of cliche, if you will, the curtain call. But the towel transitions, I think there was like 2 towel transitions. Oh my goodness gracious. I absolutely loved it. Also, their hacking type is astounding, really reflective. Shout out to Paula Scher, who is one of the co-owners, if you will, of Pentagram in New York City, and does all of the branding for the public theater, the New York Public Theater, and their branding is very similar to this. So anyway, love this very trendy type use, reflective of letterpress. But I digress there. Anyway, I also clearly love typography. Who doesn't? But the big thing is really thinking about unique transitions, because they can really elevate what you're doing with that. Oh, okay. Anyway. Oh, yes. Okay. Spoiler. Gosh darn it. We can't watch this Grubhub yet. We can't watch the Grubhub yet. Too soon. Because before we talk about Grubhub and before we talk about that commercial, which I like, whatever. I'll talk about my feels about the commercial in a hot second. But what the Grubhub commercial does extremely well is exaggeration. Okay. And that is another thing that you also see in quite a few of these different like GIF examples that you're seeing as well, is that there's a lot of exaggeration happening within the animation. Okay. So ultimately it's a way to make up for the deficit of attributes that you would normally see in real life that just ultimately don't reflect, right? The tried and true saying of, you had to be there. It doesn't look the same in video, whatever. Well, the good news is that we're not working in video. We're working with animation. We're working in motion graphics, and we can really make it feel like what it felt to be there. So when it comes to those instances of exaggeration, a really great reference point is, again, the real world and what you felt during a specific experience in the real world, and ultimately taking those feelings and just elevating them big time. All right. Elevating, exaggerating, exaggerating movements. I keep on want to say elevating. Bear with me. We'll get through it. I promise. But, exaggerating movements, exaggerating expressions is a huge thing. Exaggerating your type and making it big, or overcoming whatever. There's a lot of different ways that you can quite literally exaggerate your motion graphic work. And this is, again, one of the quick ways to just really take something and elevate it. There was actually a TikTok that I saw recently of an artist talking about how to make things cute, just illustrating things to look cute. And that is, I suppose, an interest of mine according to what I have in my apartment. But the point being is, in order to make something cute through illustration, things needed to be exaggerated. So the suggestion for making something look more cute was to soften and round the lines and bubble the lines almost. You almost give it this like sort of like bubble effect. So anything that was a straight line, like a controller, would be almost like kind of rounded, if you will, versus the very linear way that it actually is in real life. So again, that exaggeration can exude feelings or a style. Yeah, I would say feelings more than anything. I know that cute isn't inherently a feeling, but like anger is another one that's like really easy to showcase with exaggerated lines or exaggerated illustrations, really intense movements, etc. So yeah, with the Grubhub um, commercial, we're going to see a lot of exaggerated movements with the characters that ultimately showcases this sort of lighthearted joy that you should hopefully feel from it. So let's just take a look at that example. There we go. Forgive me as you hear the audio from the other ones. It's just the way that these slideshows are.
Grubhub perks give you deals on the food you love. The kind of deals that make your boogie. Get the food you love with perks from...
So as you can see, the dance moves are very exaggerated. They're moving their hips, they're grooving. But even like where the lady was down, like on their knees, like the foot and like even just the illustration itself was extremely exaggerated. Again, the big thing, the big notable part about this commercial, I think, is really just like how they're moving their hips and just like the exaggeration of the flow of the body. Is very, very prevalent in this particular commercial. So, yeah, very straightforward. This is just a quick, I think, like 30-second commercial or what have you. You can relay a lot of information in a short period of time. I used to have to do 15-second commercials, and there's a lot of stuff that you can throw in that period of time. So it's really fun and a great story that they're telling as well there. So let's go to the next one. So the next thing that we really want to talk about here, and the biggest thing, is just overall design appeal. Okay. Your visual appeal is ultimately what a person is going to want to see, or what's really going to garner their interest. Okay. This is going to involve your colors, shapes, the pictures that you're choosing, the fonts that you're choosing. So the typography that you're choosing is absolutely huge. Of course, your white space is going to be extremely important, and just ultimately your overall visual balance is going to be important when you're compiling these things together. So we're talking about a wide variety of different design fundamentals that you could use even on things that aren't necessarily in motion. So we're talking about things like balance and symmetry. So even with that last part of the Grubhub commercial, you had the character on the left-hand side, you had the text on the right, you had plenty amount of negative space, or as referred to here as white space, on the outside to give space to all the content that it needed. Of course, you also have different typography choices being used throughout all of these designs. For the soap one, for example, they were using a very basic all caps text, which you frankly see quite a lot of in video. I'm going to show you more text-based effects and stylized choices with that as well. Again, when it comes to working with your design, think about making sure that nothing feels too squished or too overwhelming. Anything that you might feel, in fact, one of the most common things that I hear from my students is, well, what do you think about this? And so they always want someone else's opinion before their own. And so I circle the question back to them and I ask them, okay, well, what do you feel about your design? You might not know why you feel this way, but how do you feel about your design? And a lot of times, if they're asking for advice, they don't really feel super great about it. And so, yeah, so they'll answer like, I feel so, like something's off, right? And so, what I'm saying is, if you look at a design and you're working in motion graphics and you see something and it feels off, the answer is because it is. It's going to be off for you, it's going to be off for everyone else. Okay. And if you feel that way, the next step is to assess, okay, what could it be? And these are some things that you could circle back to see whether or not they are the reason why you don't feel 100% about the way that you animated something or were using motion graphics. So was it the color? No, the color is fine. Could it be the shape? Included in the shape is, again, think about these different actions and movements that we were talking about. So does it feel or look like it's moving in a natural way, or perhaps a natural way but exaggerated? Yes or no? Are the typeface choices working alongside the style that you chose for your motion graphics? Is there enough space? Is there symmetry or is there asymmetry? Is there any type of balance ultimately happening in your design? Okay. All of those choices are ultimately going to affect how a person's going to perceive it, and long story short, how they're going to remember it. Okay. So again, anytime that you feel that feeling of something is not 100%, it's because it's not, and that's totally okay. Circle back, take a look at these different things, take a look at also the different types of animation ideas that we were talking about, or the fundamentals that we were talking about as well, because all of those can have an effect of that overall design appeal. Okay. You can make a list if that helps you kind of check them off as you go. Personally, for me, that's how I started ultimately being able to improve my overall designs. I would know, or I would feel that way, but I might not know the answer right away. And so I quite literally in my head just started making a list of all these things that could have an effect. Do I have enough space? Is my space consistent? Do I have balance? Is there symmetry, asymmetry? And so I'd go in my head and just circle back and forth. So alongside this idea of design appeal, I did want to show you a couple of examples that I think do a really great job just in terms of design. There is one example that I'm showing you for kinetic design, which is just your motion graphics using type only. And I'm just going to forewarn you that that example is quite fast, but visually, it's visually nice. It's just quite fast. Anyway, this is actually a commercial for Starbucks, believe it or not. So I absolutely adore the style of this commercial. Okay, really, when I say style, there's like a specific aesthetic. So if you go, let's say, to all of the different advertisements that Casper had, the Casper mattress that we showed earlier, they're all visually designed the same way or in the same aesthetic as that commercial that I showed you earlier. Okay. Here has a very distinct, specific design or a unique design to it as well. It has this really nice watercolor texture, something to definitely consider in terms of elevating your designs is to incorporate some sort of texture within your designs to elevate your motion graphics as well. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and play this.
We have always been fascinated by coffee's potential. Single origin coffees have a distinct regional taste and flavor profile in the cup. Curiosity pushes us.
Maybe I should just not mute myself. I don't know if you noticed that really exaggerated movement of the cup where it went boop, boop, boop. That was cute. But again, it was a good example of exaggerated. So, but look at all this texture happening here. Like so much texture, texture here, texture there. Different colorways happening, super cute, but also just some flat colors too, which I think is wonderful.
To explore combining these unique flavors. This is a blend.
The transitions, y'all, you seeing these transitions? Quality transitions happening, right? Not your basic cross dissolve or slide or what have you. Again, all of those like basic preset transitions. Yeah, they're just not fun. I don't know.
Just as a chef combines ingredients into a dish that's one of a kind, our coffee masters craft with coffees from around the globe. These distinctive blends celebrate coffee's potential and our heritage.
Also, again, really basic text, okay? Really basic text. When it comes to motion graphics, again, a lot of times you're going to see very straightforward, very basic text, slightly stylized. Of course, the typeface is the same that Starbucks uses for their branding. I also want to make note of the spacing, the negative space that you have. Look at the amount of negative space from the bottom. This is exceptionally important with videos. In fact, if you are ever designing a commercial, there is a specific area, which is your title and safe zone, that you need to work within in order to ensure that your type isn't going to get cut off if somebody is watching your commercial on like a square television or something of that sort. Because yes, people still have square shaped televisions and things can get cut off. Maybe you've also seen a commercial. In fact, local commercials are notorious for this. Like every single local car dealership commercial that I see, they'll have like stuff at the very bottom of their videos. You can't see it. It's quite literally cut off. So not only do you want that negative space just for design aesthetics, but you also need that negative space for an actual purpose in terms of, again, using the commercial in a commercial environment, because it can potentially get cut off. You don't want that. Okay, so a good amount of space on the bottom here. Again, the spacing is fairly consistent throughout, which is great as well.
And each blend opens.
And that nice little movement, the little bup of from the previous part that they were showing to this part where it came up with the house blend, a little quick little text transition, really nice and soft, easy. It's something that's quite reflective of what you would see in terms of your animation in different app designs as well. So it's something that a person is visually used to, if you will, and just has that nice sort of scroll through aesthetic. Okay. Again, look at that texture in the background. Oh, I'm a big fan of this type of like almost paper texture. I don't know how to describe it. Like fiber. There we go. It's like fiber texture that's going on here. Love to see it. Yeah. A lot of small details that elevates an otherwise very simplistic design into something a lot more intense, which is great.
It's a new story. Taste.
Did y'all see the little movement of the Christmas blend? Okay. A little boop boop, exaggerated movement of the little bag of coffee. Don't judge how I say bag. It's just my Minnesotan accent. But anyway, super cute. Love exaggerated movements, especially again in your motion graphics. It's just those small little things that can really elevate it.
And world unto itself.
Easy. Okay. Easy. So, and then most of these commercials, again, if you ever find yourself working with a commercial, you'll probably have this end screen here, which is just a logo and any other important information. I say any other important information, but I will tell you, if you're working with any car dealership, it's going to be a lot. You see those, warranties and things like that they got going on at the bottom. But anyway, luckily Starbucks doesn't need to worry about that here, as you can see. So there you go. That's the example there for us. So we'll go ahead and go to the next example. This is the one that I was sort of like warning you all about. The text treatment is really quite nice, and you can already see it in this preview, where they have these like different transparent textures, or again, this texture ultimately happening on the typeface, which is reflected also in some of the additional um, graphic components that you see. The issue is once I start playing this, it's very fast. It is very fast, and it's an example of how timing, I suppose, could work to your disadvantage, if I'm being honest. Because again, I think that this is a stellar commercial and a stellar idea, if only it was a bit slower, because you'll see once I play it what type of effect it might have on you. This is for the London, like a London train rail of some sort. Can't exactly remember what, but let's go ahead and take a look. Woo! Did you make it? Did you make it through it? Again, visually, oh, I love it. I loved the exaggerated movements of some of the text, you know, but oh my goodness, I can't even breathe when I'm watching it. The like you know, there's so many other audio choices that they could have perhaps gone with. I get it. And so again, I've worked with 15-minute commercials, and it is it to get the speed of something that needs to actually come through very fast, to get the speed to which it's something that someone can like digest is challenging. And long story short, this isn't I digested random words that did not come together as a full sentence. I don't know about you. But again, that's something that you want to be really mindful of. If you ever are put on the task of creating a commercial that is super brief, that is 15 seconds long, be really mindful of just the overall script length. Okay. Sometimes that's out of your control. The script length for the commercials that I did was somewhat in our control. So we were able to adjust it and be like, you know, this, no pun intended, but this isn't going to cut it. You know, we're going to have to dial this down. But if it's not, you know, considering in this instance with this, if they were like, no, this is the script, it has to be this, I would have at that point removed unnecessary words. So in those types of words, I would put them super duper small, and that way you don't see them necessarily. They're not that big of a deal. And they did quite the opposite, where they had a couple filler words like in the quite large, and yeah, I think that made it even a bit more faster. But again, it's visually nice. I love the way that they're animating it, which is great. The A to B is wonderful, but I wanted to see it for a bit longer. Like, you know, why is this going so fast? Yeah, every one of it's just really hard to follow, again, just simply too fast. The thousands was really wonderful as well. So anyway, an example of, hey, this is great kinetic typography, but is way too fast. So again, your timing is extremely important and can quite literally make or break a commercial or a design or whatever you're using your motion graphics for. Forgive me, I'm coming from an advertising background, so every time I say commercial, I just mean videos in general. Oh, okay. So we're nearing the end. We're nearing the end here. So I do want to just talk about the summary of stuff that we talked about today. Of course, we have number one, which is your timing, spacing, and rhythm. We literally just talked about it. Super huge. Ultimately, creating a well-timed flow of visual content will make your work more appealing. We saw visual proof of that in the example prior. Number two, when it comes to eases, weight, and anticipation, there's a lot of references to real life examples and how to understand how an object moves and how to use those elements to make it move like it would in real life. Number three, you have your arcs, transitions, and exaggerations. also referencing real life examples, but in motion graphics, you can elevate them to an exaggerated visual to really elevate the visuals overall. Okay, I think I worded that weird, but yeah, I think you get the point. So taking and referencing real life examples, but just elevating them by exaggerating them. How about that? Okay. And lastly, design appeal. You want to make your design memorable to your audience by using a design appeal, a design aesthetic. That's something, in fact, if you are working on building your own portfolio, for example, a huge thing that most art directors are going to look for is some sort of theme within your content. Do you have a specific type of aesthetic that you go for with your animations, with your illustrations, etc.? You want to apply that aesthetic and that theme throughout your work, okay? It's very important to do so. And yeah, and again, ultimately make your designs appealing, okay? Now, if you are interested in doing some motion graphic stuff, more than just learning about some of the design fundamentals of it, may I suggest to you our different motion graphic certificates and also our After Effects boot camp. I'm going to just go ahead and post the link a couple of times in the chat here for you. This link has all three of them available for you, so feel free to check that out. Okay, we do have quite a few upcoming classes in the next month or so, so definitely worth looking into if you need to tighten up your skills and whatnot in these different platforms. So absolutely 100% check them out, and hopefully, you know, you continue making some really beautiful designs yourself. Now, before we end, last thing that I want to show you is a commercial from Lyft. Another story. So this one's going to take a while. This one's very much a story. I think it's like around like 7 minutes, which is why I left it till the very end. So if y'all are over it, you don't want to talk to me anymore, I get it. Goodbye. But if you want to stick around, watch this really incredible animation that Lyft had. It really shows you the importance of storytelling within your motion graphics as well. So regardless of if you are incorporating just type, textures, or you are creating an entire animation and character base, you really want to think about developing a story. Oh, I love to hear that. Yeah, click on those links and we'll love to see you at one of the classes coming up. Okay. And again, let's go ahead and we'll dive into this lovely Lyft commercial. And again, look at the design aesthetic and everything. You can already see it. Very distinct design, very, I don't want to say obvious. It's just like very notable, memorable, very memorable. There you go. What are words? So let's go ahead and we'll watch this for the rest of our seminar. Did you see the little like muffler, the car kind of like bump up and down? Is this there? Oh, the lighting on the everything. The lighting is mwah, chef's kiss. So good. Lighting, come on.
So I'm thinking tomorrow night we switch the set list. Ooh, girl, I love a man in uniform. Well, good evening, Lieutenant.
Hey, Ma, it's Julie. Ma, I know I said I would come out this morning to help you look for a new car, but with work and the little ones, I can't get away. But Ma, you need a new car, okay? Just please go and treat yourself to something for once. I called Lyft for you. Remember, we talked about this, okay? Everyone uses them. They're like a taxi, so please get ready. They'll be out front in a minute. I love you, Mom. Bye.
The flags moving. Very subtle but important. I don't know if you noticed, but some of the lighting are square shaped, which is really unique, a very specific design choice. The texture of the snow is really intense too. Right? It is incredible. A lot of beautiful work is done for some of these companies. There you go. Well, let's play through the credits. But as I'm playing through the credits, I'm just going to turn the audio down. Again, really incredible work is done or with these different commercials. And it's really amazing what you can do with motion graphics and design and animation. And I hope that you can take these fundamentals that we talked about in today's class and apply them to your designs as well as you continue on. Again, really think about whether your design has appeal, and from that, ultimately, is there emotional value? I think with the last example, the biggest thing is that there is a strong emotional value that was there, even though there wasn't really any audible script. There was a lot being said without the voiceover. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's seminar. Again, definitely check out the links that I provided in case you missed them. Again, here's one last link for you all. Again, it's been an absolute delight. I'm super pumped that I was able to share my passion and love for motion graphics with you all, and hopefully give you some insight on how to elevate your next designs. For now, I hope you all have a great rest of your Friday and a wonderful weekend. And maybe we'll be seeing some of you around soon in some upcoming Noble Desktop classes. Have a good one and take care. Bye now.